Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning, and if you're tuning in, I know you are juggling a lot. Paperwork, meetings, lesson planning, the news, and maybe actually teaching students. So let's get straight to today's topic. Are we giving students the right kind of support, or are we accidentally holding them back? Today we're going to be talking all about prompt hierarchies. Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. This episode builds off episode 114, which was all about progress monitoring and working with paraprofessionals. We all know that one of the biggest challenges is finding the right balance between providing support and encouraging independence. And then when you have support staff in the mix, we have to think about consistency in prompting. The goal is to build student independence and not just get the tasks done in the fastest way possible. But let's be real. We've all had students who are way too used to getting help before they even try. So by the end of this episode, we'll know what a prompt hierarchy is and why it's so important, how to get everybody on the same page without making it feel like more work, and the number one mistake that leads to students staying stuck instead of growing. If you love what we cover today, I've got you. There's a color-coded prompt hierarchy guide inside the Paraprofessional Training Binder, which is part of the Special Educators Resource Room bundle. It's also in the Independent Work Clubhouse, which is part of the TaskBox Dollar Club. So you don't have to remember all of this. I will put the links in the show notes. We're ready to start with the basics. What exactly is a prompt hierarchy? Simply put, a prompt hierarchy is a systematic way of providing support to a student. You start with the least intrusive prompt, and you only increase support if necessary. The goal is to fade the prompts over time so students become as independent as possible. Let's use the example of teaching someone to ride a bike. Before we begin working with this person, we want to find out what can they already do. If they can already ride a bike and just need some more practice and guidance, that's a very different starting place than someone who has never sat on a bike before. For this example, let's say this is the first time this person's ever sat on a bike and tried it out. So at first, we might be holding on to the bike and providing full physical support. But then we may start to let go slightly as they start pedaling and balancing, but we're still there to guide them. Maybe it looks like partial physical support. Eventually, they're getting the hang of it and you're running along beside them. You've let go, but you're offering verbal encouragement. And finally, they're riding solo. Independence achieved. A very simplistic example, I know. The key takeaway is to move down the prompt hierarchy as quickly as possible so that students aren't relying on us if they don't actually need to be. And let's be real. How many times have we seen a student wait for an adult to tell them what to do next? Or they're watching our face and we're not even saying anything. We're not providing prompts, but they're seeing something in our eyes, the way we pause, and they are definitely getting a prompt. That's what can happen if we don't fade prompts the correct way. Now that we've got the theory down, let's talk about how this actually looks when we're working with support staff. First of all, let's acknowledge the reality. Paraprofessionals are amazing. They are juggling a lot, but they're not mind readers. If we don't take the time to teach why and how to use a prompt hierarchy, we're going to do what feels natural, which is usually giving way too much support too soon. Not because we don't care, but because we want students to be successful. So here's how we can fix that. We want to make the goal clear from the start. We're not just trying to get students through the tasks, we're teaching them to do it on their own. We can refer to a visual cheat sheet, a color-coded prompt hierarchy chart, which makes it easy to see what level of prompting to use. Next, we can model and role play. If you have a few extra minutes, you can act out the different types of prompts so we can see what they actually look like. Bonus points if you throw in some humor, like non-examples. This next tip, I'm pretty curious to hear what you think. If you find that over-prompting might be happening, teach the wait and see rule. It's a very powerful thing that you can do. You pause before jumping in because many of us will tend to help too quickly. A 5-second pause before offering a prompt can give students the chance to try it on their own first. And we want to give feedback, not criticism. If someone is over-prompting, we don't want to just say, you're doing it wrong. Instead, you want to model what fading support looks like and encourage them when they do it well. A simple, I love how you gave them a second before jumping in, can go a long way. Because at the end of the day, the best thing we can do for everyone in the classroom is to set them up for success. Okay, real talk. Some of you may be listening and thinking, I'm already doing this. This just feels like common sense. And honestly, you're right. If you've been working with students for a while, you probably have a very good sense of what they need and what's too much or too little support. You might not even be thinking about the prompt hierarchy because it's second nature to you. But here's my challenge. Even if you do not need a visual reference, your team might. So when you refer to it, model it, talk through your decisions out loud, it helps everyone around you see it in action, including paraprofessionals, new team members, and even students. This next step deserves its own podcast episode. Actually, one podcast episode would never be enough. It's how to fade prompts effectively. So now that we have everybody trained on using the right level of prompting, we now need to make sure we're actually fading support so students don't stay stuck. So here's some quick tips, but please know this can take a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of encouragement. All right, so here's how we can get started. Tracking. If a student is still getting full physical prompts weeks later, that can be a red flag. So track what kind of prompts are being used and look for patterns. We want to set independence goals. So instead of saying, I want them to complete the task, we may set a goal like, I want them to complete the task with only a gestural prompt by the end of the month. We always want to start with the least support possible. This should be the default rule. We always want to try the least intrusive prompt first before jumping in with more. We want to encourage self-monitoring. Can a student check off the steps on a visual checklist instead of waiting for an adult prompt? Great. Do that instead. And remember, prompt dependence is real. If we're not careful, we become the prompt. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. Whew, there's so much more to say on this topic. And as an instructional coach, this is where I love to spend my time. Yes, oftentimes after an observation, you'll see a big help sign and you want to pitch in and help put out the fire. But over prompting is an area that can sneak up on you. And it's when things are going so smooth and you might not be aware of it. All right, let's quickly recap before we wrap up. A prompt hierarchy is your bestie for teaching independence. Paraprofessionals and support staff can benefit from visual tools and training. And fading prompts is just as important as using them. If you loved the information in this episode, be sure to follow along and check out episode 114, which had more information about data tracking. And there's also links in the show notes to grab your own color-coded prompt hierarchy guide. It's inside the Paraprofessional Training Binder. It's also inside the Taskbox Dollar Club. If you have any questions, send me a message on Instagram at Positively Learning. I'd love to hear how prompting is going in your classroom. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.